Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Opposition gets support behind its proposal to expand the Senate to include representation from the diaspora. Where's the help? Downtown Kingston vendors blast the local government minister and the municipal corporation over lack of financial assistance. And later in sports, Afi Fletcher to miss World Cup semi-final after testing positive for COVID-19. I'm Krista Campbell, and here are the details. At least two key stakeholders have thrown their support behind the opposition's proposal to expand the Senate to include representation from the diaspora. As Sandy Williams reports, the National Integrity Action and Assistant Lecturer of Public Policy at the University of the West Indies, Damian Gordon, believe the move will do more good than harm to policy making.
Expanding the Jamaican Senate to include representation from the diaspora is an age-old idea floating around in party manifestos during election campaigns for years. But recently, opposition leader Mark Golding repeated the proposal. The Senate usually functions as a review chamber considering bills passed by the House of Representatives. It may also initiate legislation except money-related bills. Given its critical role, Assistant Lecturer of Public Policy at the University of the West Indies, Damian Gordon says the Senate should include representation from the diaspora.
I think that inclusion of senators taken from different fields and different spheres of life, including diaspora, civil society, the business community, among other segments of the Jamaican society, presents a good opportunity in terms of ensuring that the Senate is more representative, but also that the Senate expands beyond, as I noted, the tradition for the legislature to be partisan.
And Principal Director of the National Integrity Action, Professor Trevor Monroe, agrees. Professor Monroe, who is a member of the International Council of Transparency International, notes that Jamaicans overseas have made as much contribution to the development of Jamaica as those living at home.
As recently with the reform of the educational system, it was a member of the diaspora that we called on Professor Orlando Patterson to head that commission. So in many, many different ways, the diaspora is contributing. They should have a voice in the decision-making process to complement the contributions that are being made as we speak.
Over the years, members of the diaspora contributed significantly in terms of remittances. But not just in terms of remittances, but also being ambassadors for the country by showcasing Jamaica's talent and creativity to the rest of the world. And they have always shown an interest in the development of the country. The diaspora has something of value to contribute to national development.
The Senate is a nominated house made up of 21 senators. 13 are appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister, while the other 8 are appointed on the advice of the leader of the opposition.
The diaspora itself should meet and discuss this. They propose recommendations, and this become part of the discussion to come to a definitive conclusion in our constitutional reform process. There are a few countries in the world who have provisions for their diaspora to be represented. One of the considerations would be for our looking at those proposals to see how they actually work. So it's not beyond us to look at creative ways of ensuring that the diaspora will be represented.
Professor Monroe says the time has come for Jamaica to take the step.
The diaspora itself has an important role to play, or media has an important role to play, and civil society organizations interested in strengthening good governance, such as National Integrity Action, have a role to play in keeping this proposal alive and to ensure that action happens now and no longer just recommendations, as has been the case from 1995 to 2022.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Vendors affected by the recent market fires in downtown Kingston are blasting the municipal corporation and the local government minister Desmond McKenzie for not providing financial assistance since they were burnt out. TVJ News understands that market fees are still being collected from vendors affected by a fire at the Oxford Market. Jamila Maitland has that story.
The smell of smoke, hazy atmosphere, charcoal floor and a caved-in roof are evidence of the disaster that struck in the Oxford market a month ago. Millions of dollars worth of goods were destroyed, and since then, the vendors say business has been slow. Those who spoke to us say they have not received any assistance from the government.
Nothing I go on, when I see nobody come and talk to me and nothing to try help me. At 6 people me have, 6 people me have to take care of. Look on the show them and 2 look at baby shoes. Nothing I go on.
It's funny fire still. I confused because we can't really hustle. I just get me up for rent and try to save some skeleton and time and all these things. You understand me?
TVJ News understands that vendors' names were written down by an employee of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. However, they're not aware of what type of assistance will be given and how soon. Rose is an elderly woman who sells in the market. Most of her goods were destroyed in the fire.
Now when you see the empty spot and you see the place that is where you feel.
Crap. The vendors argue that they have yet to receive financial assistance from the government despite paying daily market fees.
Me not have it, I don't have it because she come to me and say, wow, Shawty, you put... I say, right now, you can't ask me for nothing out of this. Me not have it. Me don't have it because me not see nobody come to me and say nothing. That say, yes, I give you something for say, boy, I say something here can start back.
That was on Thursday. We checked with the ksamc to find out why the fees were still being collected from the affected vendors. We did not receive a response. And on Friday, the mayor said he ordered the fees to be discontinued.
The instruction is to the market manager is that we are not collecting fees at this time from vendors impacted by the fires.
But on Saturday, vendors revealed that the fees were still being collected. We put that issue to the ksamc CEO, Robert Hill. However, we did not receive a response up to news time. The vendors say they would welcome the discontinuation of the market fees, but argue that much more relief is needed. Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
And TVJ News has since received a response from the ksamc CEO Robert Hill. Now he says market managers have been ordered to stop collecting fees from the affected vendors. And as it relates to financial assistance, the ksamc CEO says loss or damage of vendors' goods is not covered under the ksamc's insurance policy. Now the policy only covers loss and or replacement costs of the market building, structure, fixtures and fittings. Classes are now in session at the White Horses Primary School in St. Thomas following a scare at the institution yesterday where a number of students fell ill. But as we hear in this report, the parents and students believe the encounter was not a mere illness, but rather of a spiritual nature.
Was it a spiritual attack or not? The question on the minds of parents of the White Horses Primary School in St. Thomas after several students fainted at the institution on Monday, forcing an early closure.
The teacher just called and said I should come and pick up my child. There's an emergency at the school. So I said, Miss, what is the emergency? So she cannot share any details. She don't have enough detail of what is happening. So I'm like, so Miss, is something wrong with my child? I should just come and get the child.
But the parent says the way in which the teacher spoke raised concern. She says that's when she remembered a conversation she had with her daughter the prior week that she fell ill. However, she said she didn't make much of the initial conversation. But the following day, another complaint of not being well.
And she said to me, Mommy, me never faint this time, but when I drop down in my seat, man, me never feel good. So I guess it's from last week and them never does nothing. And me still I wonder where the hush. If something happened at the school, tell the parents, so the parents them know.
Another parent said he heard that 4 students were possessed.
But see, me well want to see a Duppy, me not see none long time, I never see one before, me well want to see one, But me not understand, they're in there doing some prayers and such forth, that there's some kids fell down by demon possession, but I've not seen that, I don't know.
Our news team trying to get a comment from the school administration. However, we were barred from entering the premises. We were also told that the administration was locked in a meeting yesterday and would not be able to comment on the matter. We also tried to get a comment today. However, we were told that the administration was again in another meeting. Now, this is not the first occurrence in St. Thomas. On April 4, 2019, there was an alleged demonic attack at another high school in the parish where 5 students were believed to have been taken over by spirits. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And we take our first break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson says the force has been conducting training sessions for its members to deal with domestic violence. Speaking in Montego Bay, St. James recently, Major General Anderson said the last set of trainees are from Trelawney and are being trained in St. James.
Now, in Trelawney, domestic violence and in other places in the country can easily transition into other crimes, into murder. That's what we've seen. Now, as a force, we've had to respond to this because what we want to do is prevent the murder, not just investigate murders. And for that reason, we opened 6 DV centers last year.
He said equally important, members must be aware of the policies and the support structures that exist outside of the Jamaica Constabulary Force that can help them put a dent in cases of domestic violence.
And being able to use the tools, use the law, use the information available to get better outcomes for our citizens who have these kinds of issues. And so it's very important, and that's so. At the same time as responding to high violence, responding to what's happening internally, we're responding to domestic violence.
The opposition is blasting the government's plan to grant permits for the importation of chicken back and neck. The Agriculture Ministry announced that registered entities may now apply for permits from April 1 to 8 under the revised program. However, speaking at the People's National Party's NEC meeting in Westmoreland on the weekend, PNP President Mark Golding criticized the plan as a move that will cause hardship for small farmers.
We're not in favor of any permits for importation of chicken when there's no shortage of chicken. All that will do is wipe out small farmers who make a living out of that, raising chicken. Give that money which you're going to give up in revenue if you give those people duty-free access to bring in imported, subsidized chicken meat. Give that to the farming, the chicken industry to reduce their input costs and ensure that that is passed through to consumers so we don't undermine what is really a basic way in which so many people earn a living.
Mr. Golding said this approach is part of the PNP's plan to make agriculture a critical part of the economy. And now for the latest in business, we go to O'Shane Masters with the Business Minute.
Baking company Honeybun recorded a 31% increase in post-tax profit for the first quarter ended December. The company earned $45.5 million in net profit compared to $35.8 million in 2020. Honeybun's revenues amounted to $664 million, a 44% increase from the prior year. However, it lost 5% in profit margins due to significant price increases in all inputs, supply shortages, and shipping delays. And oil prices fell sharply on Tuesday after Russia indicated it will dial back its assault in parts of Ukraine. The developments eased energy supply fears that sent oil prices skyrocketing earlier this month. U.S. oil tumbled 6.4% to $99.25 per barrel in recent trading. Brent crude, the world benchmark, lost 5.4% to settle at $106.43 per barrel. And that's all for the Business Minute today. I'm Shane Masters.
And Sandy Williams has the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Dominica government has announced the relaxation of some of the measures put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Health, Dr. Irving McIntyre, in a statement noted that from March 2020, the island has been dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In his radio and television broadcast, Dr. McIntyre said as of April 4, restrictions on religious gatherings gatherings will be removed and that churches would no longer be restricted to a maximum attendance of 150 and may operate at full capacity. He said public transportation is allowed to operate at full capacity and that restrictions on educational instruction have been removed. On the international scene, at least 3 people are dead after a snow squall caused a mass pileup on a Pennsylvania highway on Monday morning. It happened just after 10:30 on I-81 North near Minersville. Dozens of cars were involved in a deadly pileup between the 116 and 119 exits. The pileup caused multiple cars and tractor trailers to catch on fire. Officials say 24 people were taken to 4 different hospitals for treatment of injuries. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And we take another break now, but Renardo Brown is standing by with your Midday Sports Report.
Welcome back. It's now time for your Midday Sports. Now, West Indies women have been dealt a blow ahead of today's semi-final against Australia with news that veteran spinner Afi Fletcher will miss the game after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Young all-rounder Mandy Mangrew, who has been in New Zealand as a travelling reserve, has been drafted into the squad as Fletcher's replacement and is in contention to play her first game of the tournament. The loss of Fletcher reduces West Indies' bowling options against a powerful Australian lineup and robs them of an experienced player that has played 58 ODI games for the Caribbean side. Now, Fletcher has picked up 4 wickets from 3 matches at the ICC Women's World Cup so far, with her best haul coming against Bangladesh when she collected 3 for 29 from 10 overs. Meanwhile, speaking prior to the game, Windies captain Stefani Taylor says having been in Wellington for the last 2 weeks is an advantage for the team.
Yeah, we've been here for some time now and, been in the nets and, getting used to the conditions. So, that should help us, in how we play tomorrow. But, saying that Australia has been here probably more often than we have. But we just have to, take it as it comes.
Now, the Aussies, who are unbeaten so far, defeated the West Indies in the 2013 ODI World Cup final, but lost to the Windies in the 2016 T20 World Cup equivalent. In 14 ODI meetings between the two teams, West Indies have only been victorious once, and that was 9 years ago. The game goes off at 5 p.m. Jamaica time. The Australians will also be without Elise Perry. President of the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, Garth Gale, has once again highlighted the country's need for an indoor track and has identified the Montego Bay Conference Center as an ideal location. In summarizing his recent trip to the World Indoor Championships in Belgrade, Serbia, where Jamaica won 3 medals, Gale thinks the Montego Bay location has all the accessories and amenities to be upgraded with an indoor facility.
Why could we not host a World Indoors? We have the hotels and the transportation. The airport is right there. So we have most of the critical things needed for the staging, a successful staging of a World Indoor Championships.
Now, Gale also noted he could assemble a team to meet with the authorities to pursue that development. And in football, Monday Night Football returned with a bang. Hundreds of spectators turned out for Arnett Garn's 1-0 win over Waterhouse under the lights at Southampton Road. Kimani Arborn got the lone goal of the game in the 11th minute as Arnett broke a wait of 14 league games to finally get a win over the Jerusalem team. With the 3 points, Arnett now go above Waterhouse to second in the Jamaica Premier League standing on 24 points, just 1 behind leaders Dumbarton FC. Now, earlier goals from Jeremy Nelson and Tariq Sutherland handed Malines United a 2-1 win over Humberline in the Curtain Raiser. Kenil Hyde's 76th-minute strike proved to be a consolation for the Clarendon team. The win means Malines United were recording consecutive victories for the first time this season and are 9th with 10 points. And finally, Tivoli Gardens remained perfect after 4 games in Group A of the ISA Urban Era Under-16 football competition after beating Kingston Technical 3-1 on Monday. With Kingston Technical losing, Calabar took the opportunity to join them on 6 points after they recorded a 3-1 win over St. Jago. Over in Group B, there were 10 goals across 2 games as Wolmer's boys hammered Excelsior 6-0, while Jamaica College had a 4-0 victory over Jose Marti High. In Group C, Charlie Smith clipped Campion College 1-0, while there were no goals between Kingston College and St. Catherine High, who were getting their first point of the campaign. The only other perfect team in the competition, St. Andrew Technical, made it 4 from 4 with an easy 3-1 win over Jonathan Grant. This in Group D, while Camperdown clipped Dunoon Technical 2-1. St. George's College remain leaders of Group E with 9 points as they beat Papine 2-0, while Mona High and Bridgeport played out a 1-1 scoreline. And that's it for your Midday Sports Report. It's back to you, Krista.
Thank you so much, Renardo. And that's a wrap on the Midday News for today. I'm Krista Campbell. Join us again at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, have a good afternoon.